You wake to incense and rotting meat, the holy stench that means another dawn on God's credit. You thought faith would taste like miracles, it tastes like salted leather iron pennies, and whatever spoils fester behind crusader teeth. Prayers here are currency debts tallied in blisters and blood. The bankers wear mail and scabs, stacking ledgers as thick as skulls, because even in Jerusalem, heaven won't trust you on a handshake. Gold crosses shimmer between pus and faith, but don't be fooled. The value of a soul drops midday right when the lice swarm, and the sun peels the banners from the dead. You kneel at the altar and the Templar lifts a chalice. Silver maybe, plague-fingered definitely. Salvation's just a premium paid in advance, and in the ruins of Acre William of Tyre might whisper, the sword did not care who prayed, only who paid. Did you imagine the Lord's treasury ran on angelic favors? Try salt ransom and the luck of not coughing blood before collecting your share. They called it charity, but every act was a bargain in lamb's skin. Parchment for pawns, contracts for corpses, interest accrued with every broken oath. Joinville saw coins change hands even while siege engines buckled and monks wept for sacked relics. Some called it piety. You call it inventory, God's warehouse of guilt where relics are tallied by weight and rumor. Blessed are the pilgrims pickpocketed before Vespers, their loss secures another candle in a king's chapel and a drunk knight's next apocalyptic wager. And when the banking's done, what's left? A ledger thicker than the gospel and twice as terrifying. A faith that keeps score in missing relics and vanished sons. You came for resurrection and left with a receipt, payable in silver signed in ashes, countersigned by the flies. You want forgiveness, so you sharpen a blade. The mercy you seek tastes of iron and curdled milk, as you kneel ankle-deep in guts praying your wounds are enough payment for sins you only half remember. God may count souls, but out here the Templar abacus rattles with severed hands, orphaned teeth, and ransom paid in cartilage. Every Saracen corpse is a voucher for paradise, provided you live long enough to see tomorrow's massacre. They promised absolution with every sword thrust, but the coins stack in the same bloody purses. Joinville whispers of men hacked apart while psalms echo the liturgy, drowned by the crunch of bone and the slick tally of another gift to the Lord. You gave tithe at sword point, and in return they stuffed your salvation in a coffer, beside relic splinters and saintly shin bones infested with lice. In the end, your confessions smell of burnt hair and stewed meat, sanctified by the shrieks of those who bled so you might boast of penance. The sacred math of violence, for every coin flung at God's altar another corpse sags from the ramparts. The Knights Templar took blood as both tithe and currency, promising a ledger entry in the Lamb's book if your blade dripped with enough heretic vidi. Don't bother asking how many must die for a seat at the banquet. Joinville counted, until the numbers dissolved in pus and prayers stitched with panic. Glory was promised, but you inherit debt, sweating off absolution in chainmail that stinks of everyone else's sin. Each salvation comes with a surcharge of trauma, a discount for surviving the slaughter, and a receipt that reads, paid in viscera pending divine audit. As daylight fades and the flies sing their black liturgy, you realize you never pledged your soul to paradise, just leased it from God's most ruthless accountants. The road to Jerusalem starts with blisters and ends with a ransom note written in pus. You imagined gilded processions, but the only gold here lines the mouths of Templars counting your mother's wedding ring into their crusader purse. Pilgrimage, they said, was the purchase of grace. Just ignore the starving children on the roadside gnawing on sandal straps and old rosaries. You kneel at holy sites slick with pilgrim spit and lice imagining sainthood, while the order measures your worth in advance burial fees. The rites demand coin sinew and an appetite for shame. Every footfall is taxed, every relic cited another ledger entry. Before you can pray, you pay for safe passage for moments by the slab where Christ's blood allegedly pooled for a Templar's nod that says you belong barely. The relic trade churns like a fever, holy splinters peddled in exchange for a year's bread, Mary's hair lock sold with baked-in lice, and a sliver of cross for the right to kneel and vomit up hope. Tithes pile up, but so do the ransom demands. The Saracens snatch your son, the order sends a bill to save his soul and fingers. Joinville quips that the price of piety is measured in weight, of silver or corpses, depending on who counts. The ledger gets ever muddier, choked with IOUs and broken vows, while the righteous are marched off to market chain-linked to their own salvation. Each torn script, each groined archway is a toll booth. Pay with flesh or pay with agony, the economics are wholly the rate usurious, the reward nothing but a shivering in your bones that maybe this debt cannot be paid. You walk on lighter in purse and soul, escorted by sanctified bandits who tell you the final receipt is written in relic dust, not mercy. You hand the Templar a sack of coins. Their hands stink of iron, old wounds, and vanished kingdoms. They smile that holy smile, teeth chipped on hardtack and blasphemy, and promise you God's protection with a parchment contract thick enough to wrap a corpse. The ink hasn't dried before you realize your loan is collateralized by your ancestors' bones and a relic that might be a splinter of Christ, if you're blind or desperate or both. Every transaction is a sacrament written in pus. You trade salvation for a voucher, a slip of paper stamped with a red cross, and the lingering spit of a dying scribe. Faith is now a receipt, heaven a ledger with room for every noble's debt and every shriveled village dream. The sword did not care who prayed, only who paid. A William of Tyre groaned in the shadow of Acre, watching Christians mortgaged to the next crusade. You cash your letter of credit at some Templar preceptory, and the air reeks of boiled leather candle smoke, and the anxiety sweat of men who have made one too many holy deals. The order swaps promises for spoils, land for souls, penance for coin, hope for a tomb reserved in advance. The ledgers run red not just with ink, but with the price of broken crusades, and every tally is haunted by a ghost who once bled for a relic that turned out to be a pig's thigh. Try defaulting. See how merciful God's accountants become. Your relics get pawned, your lands auctioned, your bones scheduled for collection. The only currency that holds is misery hedged against apocalypse, and the only guarantee is that when the vault is cracked open, it will reek of sanctity, lies, and enough rotted parchment to choke a saint. Blessed are the poor, because even their debt is too filthy to collect. You wake with an oath crusted on your tongue and the taste of old blood in your mouth, only some of it yours. The Templar habit still smells faintly of wax and sanctity, but the flies can tell you who's broken faith before you even put it on. You swore chastity, poverty, obedience. Easy words until you're staring down a Saracen spear or haggling over a ransom while your brothers rot in chains. Glory dries up faster than sweat on a sun-boiled corpse, trust even faster. Every vow is a gamble mortgaged to divine silence. The more you promise, the less you own, until your soul is nothing but a ledger entry scribbled by trembling, calloused fingers. Templar brotherhood is a fortress of paper bound, with parchment wrung from animal and apostate. Joinville mutters that a broken oath gnaws the flesh from the inside out. The Inquisitor just counts the teeth that fall out during confession. Trust is a luxury, too costly, too fragile, always for sale to whichever king can afford the biggest candle at Easter. One by one, the cracks spread, betrayals whispered in torchlit corridors, rival orders stealing relics while the night watch pisses itself on duty. He who betrays a brother betrays Christ, they thunder, right before hauling the next man to the rack and testing faith with a red-hot iron. Inquisition logic, a promise is only as sacred as it is profitable to break. You wanted brotherhood and you got suspicion. You wanted heaven, you financed hell. Every broken oath is collateral for another heresy, another king's favor, another relic pawned under the guise of holy austerity. When the Templar estate collapses, it won't be because outsiders stormed the gate. It'll be because every trust was mortgaged beneath the weight of so many blood-sworn lies, the whole rotten edifice screaming down around your ears. Dust settles, not justice. You want sanctity. Pull a finger from the Templar chest and inhale. If it reeks of incense and rot, congratulations, that's half a saint. The price of holiness is parasite splinters, and the sickening certainty that the reliquary glistening before you once belonged to a plague pit in Provence. You spent your last coins kissing what might be Mary's comb or some widow's lice-riddled hairpin. The Psalms promised miracles, but relics promise profit, especially when bone and gold cost less than faith. Here's the sacred secret stitched into every worm-eaten relic pouch: extortion is holy if you wave enough red crosses over it. The Order parades skull chips and bloodied splinters across Europe, each one stamped with a certificate forged by a half-blind scribe, and a monk with a talent for narrative. Relic inventories multiply like maggots. 3 heads of John the Baptist, a dozen nails of the true cross, and more virgin's milk than there are virgins in Christendom. You pay, you kneel, you pray for absolution, while the Templars slide your silver under an altar slick with spilled wine and something that might be oil or just old marrow. William of Tyre didn't bother to mask his disgust as he watched bishops bicker over jawbones in Jerusalem's fetid heat. Each relic is a ransom, a hostage negotiation with heaven. Pay up, or face the apocalypse unblessed and unshriven. Some call it holy commerce, but the price isn't just gold. It's the fear that the grail at the heart of their vault was never a cup, only a story fattened by fraud and sanctified extortion. Keep buying your miracles. Soon you'll be broke, sick, and haunted by relics that work only if you don't look too closely. The ultimate weapon isn't a sword, but a splinter shoved in your face, priced by men whose grace is measured by how much desperation you'll pay to swallow. You pay for the scent of victory, but all you breathe is burning fat and the vague sweetness of split guts. Acre was supposed to be the treasure chest of Christendom, lined with relics and gold. Yet in the end it stank of skin sloughing from bone, and the Templar vaults running red. Your coins get you a place behind the walls next to nervous paymasters and monks melting in their habits, but no purse is proof against a Saracen blade glinting under a siege-black sun. You grip your charter of credit while the ramparts burst, and your own bowels threaten mutiny. The Templars counted wealth in chalices and silver, but the Saracens brought ledgers written in flesh. The siege turns faith into currency and currency into fever, every promise of rescue shriveling in the heat. William of Tyre warned, the city's riches could not ransom a single soul from the slaughter. You watch merchants try to bribe the knives pressing closer through the rubble. Every coin only sharpens the price on your own head. Brotherhood dissolves. A dying knight's last act is to swallow the key to the treasury, while a scribe jots ruin in trembling Latin. You kneel in the carnage, less penitent than bankrupt. Blood pools with ink dripping through the cracks in the counting house floor, while the relics, Christ's tooth, Mary's veil, or just a merchant's clever forgery, vanish beneath trampling feet. No sanctity survives, only screams, splintered icons, gold gouged loose from the altar as men trade their souls for a final useless bribe. So here's your divine receipt, marked paid in full, stamped with the boots of 1,000 Saracens, and blessed by the flies that swarm what's left of your investment. This was what faith financed: the sound of steel gnawing bone, while holy ledgers flutter in the ashes, unread and irrelevant. The apocalypse didn't arrive in prophecy, it rode in with accountants choking on their own holy dust. The cell smells of burnt bone and spoiled candle wax. Salvation's perfume filtering through cracks as you count your ribs and pray for the luxury of forgetting. Here glory doesn't echo. It howls ragged and toothless through the night, faith splintered and spat out on a rack by men whose vestments hide the stains of old bribes. The trial of the Templars is not a court, but an abattoir parchment thick with accusations, lips swollen from confessing to sins written by fevered inquisitors, and not a single honest ghost. You confessed by the light of a torturer's grin. Say the prayer backward, spit on the cross, adore a cat, worship a relic that's just a wolf's bone in a golden box. It doesn't matter. Guilt is currency, and every scream is a coin spent buying a little more favor from a king hungry for treasury keys and scapegoats. No man could endure such torment without lying. The transcripts moan, but the ledgers don't care what's true. The only truth is scraped out of skin and signed in infected blood. Irony stalks the corridors, vows of poverty prosecuted by princes fattened on Templar gold, purity undone by the hands of executioners, faith reduced to inventory. William of Tyre once chronicled swords that judged, but now it's the notary. Feathered quill flitting fat and oily across confession pages that tastes blood. You see the order's ideals on the floor, crushed under the boots of clerks and torturers. Brotherhood becomes betrayal, obedience transforms into heresy, and every denial is auctioned off to the highest royal debt collector. Perhaps you dreamed of martyrdom. What you get is bookkeeping and screaming, heraldic crosses traded for iron fetters, relics looted as financial evidence, and in the end absolution foreclosed at the barrel of a judge's glare. Saints rot in silence, but sinners have names, numbers, and a chain on every limb. You clung to silver, cold, clean, immune, until the air filled with the stench of burned parchment and choking saints. The vaults once echoed with metallic hymns, now they're mausoleums, each coin blackened, each relic silent beneath a crust of holy soot. Faith sold itself by the ounce, but the grim cashier at the end of this cathedral market is fire, and fire is hungry for ledger's bones and lies inked in the marrow of your oaths. You thought sainthood cashed out on relics and promises, but there is no currency in ash. The price of absolution wears the faces of men shrieking as their faith is inventoried and liquidated. Confessions rot in the corners unread and unredeemed, while William of Tyre's great deeds flicker and gutter, another line item erased by the wind. The grail, they murmured, was a vessel of infinite credit, but at the final reckoning it was emptier than your stomach the day Acre died. Each banner falls threadbare and whimpering, repurposed for a pauper's shroud. The Templar treasury, once obese on penance and plunder, starves on rumors of gold that can't be found and debts that refuse to die. 100 years of sacred extortion collapse into dust, heretical, unspent, unforgiven. The auctioneer's voice is the only prayer left singing over the coffers as the flames devour the last fraudulent inventory. In the end, you don't walk away redeemed. You crawl from the wreckage, fingerprints scorched with broken vows, the only thing clinging to your flesh, a dust so holy it chokes. Welcome to God's final accounting here. Every coin and oath dissolves into smoke, every promise is bankrupt, and the only thing left to balance is the weight of your own ashes. Your faith stinks of old wounds and spilt secrets, the air heavy with iron and the sour tang of centuries worth of lies. They promised you the grail, golden, overflowing, the very engine of salvation, then handed you a riddle, a rumor, and an invoice so long your children's bones will still be paying off Christ's bloodline in interest. Beneath each hallowed goblet glimmers only the damp shadow of madness, not miracles. The closer you get, the more the mask slips, revealing teeth scrubbed raw in hope and rot. The Grail is not a cup never was, just a debt ledger dressed as prophecy, and every fool who chased it wound up mortgaging his marrow to a myth. You dreamt yourself royal, ordained by liquid ancestry, but the trail is centuries of forgeries and whispers. According to the Gospels of suspicion, holy blood and the Holy Grail, the true treasure, is a family tree poisoned at the roots, festooned with heresy, suckled by hungry orders, and watered in the dark by every king desperate to own eternity and upstage Rome. God's secret trust fund, not faith, not relics, but a line of birthright IOUs stretching from Calvary to the racks of the Inquisition, each drop of sacred blood, carrying just enough heretics' madness to stain the fate of empires. You scramble for relic dust in the dark, clutching veins and chalices, praying for divinity, but inheriting only paranoia. The Templars banked not on absolution, but on the world's inability to tell relic from ransom, blood from rumor, Christ from creditor. Your ultimate debt is not to God, but to story, scandal, and the craving that somewhere, one relic, one bone, one lost gospel away, redemption's balance still exists, waiting to be cashed at Armageddon's counting house. Scrape your tongue on holy silver, confess to blood you never bled, let your hope ferment to vinegar, because the Grail isn't a savings account. It's a womb hollowed for secrets, a mortgage on your sanity, and the sacred receipt for a world forever bankrupt, forever driven mad by the promise of paid in full. The reckoning does not smell of myrrh, but of scorched bone and incinerated ledger, a stench thick enough to curdle faith and sour even the holiest wine. You crawl from the ashes, skin raw, lips blistered, clutching receipts, stamped in blood and tears from saints who were never paid in full. Apocalypse is not a lightning bolt or a trumpet blast, but a procession of bankrupt piety. Relics, pawned vows, defaulted heaven's accountants found strangled in their own red tape. You prayed for judgment, you got a line of creditors at the gates tallying sin with abacuses dipped in martyrs' gore. Saints and sinners alike shamble through the wreckage, counting miracles like missing teeth, none worth the price of survival. Here Joinville's glorious brotherhood files for spiritual insolvency, their courage auctioned for a handful of papal indulgences, and the right to die forgot. The old promises rot on tongues blackened by plague, blessed are those who endure to the end. But the end tastes like account books burnt to cinders, and the clack of rosary beads traded for bread. Your relics, your prayers, your blind investments, each one written off in the most sacred bankruptcy imaginable. The Templars counted on the world ending with a trumpet, not a fire sale. They hedged their bets on saints, bones, and the weight of centuries. But the final audit finds every holy balance sheet scribbled over by heretics, kings, and shivering beggars. William of Tyre might weep, but even his tears would be taxed by some banker's ghost demanding interest on the apocalypse. There is no profit in damnation, no relic that redeems a ruined century, no divine credit line that can bail you from the pit. In the end, you find yourself arraigned with saints and usurers, the last coin rattling in a bowl fashioned from your own skull. The ultimate reckoning is not salvation, but silence. Books closed, banners charred, and every oath rendered worthless in the smoke-choked dawn.